Hi, everybody. Welcome to Module 1 Understanding Emotional Eating. Sometimes, before we dive into the actual components, it's helpful to go over some definitions. And so, I wanted to start with the definition of emotional eating, which refers to our tendency to eat in response to emotions rather than physical hunger. Psychological triggers include stress, boredom, loneliness, happiness, and other emotions that lead to overeating. And the impact on weight loss is huge. Emotional eating can often sabotage weight loss efforts by leading to overconsumption. And typically, these overconsumed foods are unhealthy foods to begin with. When I began my weight loss journey, I was asked to do a self assessment tool and really to think about how I felt before and after I ate food. And at first, I thought it was kind of a silly exercise. And in hindsight, it taught me so much about myself and the way that I interacted with food. And we're going to put in the module here on school, we're going to put the self assessment tool. So if you're following along on school, please feel free to download that self assessment tool and fill it out. And we really use this as a technique for identifying your personal emotional eating triggers. Some people will do journaling or whatever, and we've tried to make it really easy for you guys by just creating a worksheet. It really helps you to differentiate between physical hunger and emotional hunger. So, as you're filling out the worksheet, it will prompt you to really think about how you're feeling before and after eating. And that's so important because it gets you to stop and check in with yourself to see, am I really hungry, or is there something that's going on in my life that is causing me some kind of stress or some kind of elevated emotion that is triggering me to eat. And in the process of doing that, you really get to hone in on what your triggers are. And the funny thing is, if you're doing weight loss medication, you might find that your emotional eating is really suppressed by the medication. And that is because of the changes that take place in your body. Food is no longer affecting your pleasure center. So that changes so many things about your day to day. So for me, I noticed after completing the tool that I was really driven to eat food when I was anxious. If I felt like something was outside of my control or if something was unpredictable and I didn't know how it was going to turn out, that was a really big motivator for me to turn to food. And it was almost like a way to settle myself down. And maybe it's because when we eat, it kicks in our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and repose or our relaxation mode. And so, whenever you have a full belly, you feel like you're more relaxed. And then that feeling of calm was immediately replaced with feelings of guilt, where I would just feel terrible because most of the time I was turning to some kind of food that was not good for me or was high in calories and just exacerbating my weight situation. And so it was like this constant cycle of anxiety driving me to eat, driving me then to feel guilty, and on and on. And it was just like sort of a roller coaster of terrible emotions. And our brain chemistry is so complex and has so much to do with emotional eating. And so I wanted to take some time to really talk about our brain chemistry and the role of things like dopamine and serotonin as it relates to emotional eating. So, your brain is basically like a control center that helps us feel emotions, make decisions, and even control our hunger. And two important chemicals in the brain called neurotransmitters that play a big role in how we feel and how we eat are called dopamine and serotonin. Dopamine is often called the feel good neurotransmitter. So, when you do something enjoyable, like eating your favorite food, your brain releases dopamine. This makes you feel happy and rewarded. And your brain remembers this feeling and encourages you to do the same thing again and again. For example, if you're feeling sad or stressed, then your brain might crave foods that make you feel good, like before, like ice cream and chips. And this can lead to emotional eating, where you eat to feel better rather than because you're hungry. The other chemical is called serotonin, which is another neurotransmitter that helps to regulate your mood and feelings of well being. We often refer to it as the happy chemical. And when your serotonin levels are balanced, you feel calm and content. But when they're low, you might feel depressed or anxious. And some people eat certain foods, especially carbs and breads and pastas, because these foods can temporarily boost serotonin levels. And this is why you might reach for a snack when you're feeling down, because your brain is trying to make you feel better by increasing your serotonin. However, when you're eating these comfort foods, which might make you feel better in the short term, it can lead to unhealthy eating habits and weight gain in the long run. And we already know that that leads to forms of depression in people that are overweight. So, understanding how dopamine and serotonin influence your eating habits can really help you to make healthier choices and avoid emotional eating. I know for myself, just knowing and really thinking about how I was eating food before in relationship to my feelings of anxiety, etc., that I really was better about recognizing it, like stopping before I would put it in my mouth or before I would go to get it out of the fridge and just thinking about, okay, am I eating this because I'm anxious and it's not going to fix my anxiety problem or it's not going to help the situation that's making me feel anxious. So let me just not do that. Our bodies are super complicated and very sophisticated. And we go through this thing called the stress response, which is our body's physiological response to stress. And this has a huge impact on our eating behaviors. When you feel stressed, your body goes through a physiological response that's often called the fight or flight response. And this is something that our bodies have been doing for thousands of years to help us survive. When you encounter stress, whether it's from school or work or something personal, then your brain signals to your body that it's time to either fight the stressor or run away from it. And one of the first things that will happen to your body during this stress response is that your body will release these stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. And these hormones are going to get your heart pumping faster, increase your breathing rate, and make your muscles tense up. All of that is in preparation for action. And this stress response can also affect how you eat. When I'm stressed, for example, if I was feeling anxious about something, then my cortisol levels in my body are going to rise. And cortisol is known as the stress hormone, and it can actually make you crave foods that are high in sugar, fat, or both. So, this is great to know because if you are feeling stressed and then all of a sudden you start feeling like you want to have a bag of chips, now you know why, and you can go, "Yeah, I'm just stressed. I don't really need those chips." But these types of food basically give you quick energy, which makes your body more prepared to fight. So your body's gonna be like, I need foods that are high in sugar and fat because I'm gonna have a fight on my hands here, and I need to be prepared for that." So this is why when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I am more prone to reach for the Twizzlers because they're high in sugar or the potato chips because they're high in fat. And I do that even if I'm not hungry. I just feel like stressed out. My body is trying to cope with that stress by making me crave those foods. So in the short term, eating those foods, which are comfort foods, can make me feel better because they're temporarily going to lower my stress levels, lower my cortisol levels, and maybe even trigger the release of some feel good chemicals like the dopamine. But over time, that kind of stress eating can lead to weight gain and other health problems, especially if it becomes a regular habit. So, my hope here is that understanding what's going on in your body during stressful times and why it would prompt you to crave certain foods, that this would help you during the rough times or the tough times. And by being aware of this, that you can hopefully manage your stress in healthier ways, like through exercise or meditation or breathing techniques, or even just talking to somebody instead of turning to food for comfort. So, I want to introduce a phrase that we might use periodically in the future so that everybody is aware of this phrase and knows what it means. And that is emotional dysregulation. Emotional dysregulation happens when someone has difficulty managing or responding to their emotions in a balanced way. And so instead of processing feelings like stress or sadness or anger in a healthy way, someone might experience these emotions intensely and have trouble calming down or thinking clearly. And so this can really impact their eating behaviors and lead to those unhealthy patterns. So, when emotions are dysregulated, food can become a hugely powerful coping mechanism. And for me, it was a major coping mechanism. And so sometimes that would provide a temporary distraction from what else was going on in my life or sort of distract me from those intense feelings. And the act of eating, especially comfort foods that are high in sugar and fat, triggers the release of those neurotransmitters, right? The neurotransmitters that are associated with pleasure and reward, like dopamine. And this gives you like a really brief high, which makes you feel so good in the moment and then is super temporary and then you come crashing back down and all of those underlying emotions are still there and nothing is resolved. So over time, this creates a cycle where that individual will turn to food more and more when they experience those difficult emotions instead of dealing with the stressors themselves and adopting better coping mechanisms. So, emotional dysregulation can often lead to impulsive behaviors. So, for example, when someone is overwhelmed by emotions, they might act without thinking and just grab whatever food is close by, whether it's an unhealthy snack or not. And so, this impulsivity just kind of further reinforces that unhealthy eating habit and makes it harder to break the cycle because they're just kind of like acting in the moment. So, understanding the connection between emotional dysregulation and your eating patterns is really crucial for developing those healthier habits. And by learning to manage your emotions through techniques like mindfulness and relaxation exercises, like we mentioned before, with, just walking or breathing techniques or whatever, you can really reduce your reliance on food as a coping mechanism and adopt some healthier more nourishing behaviors. I like to tell people I used to be the kind of person that when I needed to feed my soul, I would feed my mouth. And it's it didn't help me. It didn't help me at all. In fact, it just made things worse because I was overweight and I felt terrible. My energy levels were lower. I didn't have good nutrition, so I really wasn't on top of my game emotionally anyway. And then I continued to add fuel to the fire. And when you're dealing with these emotions, it's so easy to reach for food as a quick fix. However, there are just so many effective non food coping strategies that can help you manage your emotions in healthier ways. So let's talk about a few of them. I think the first one that I want to talk about is mindfulness. And that's just a really great technique that focuses on being present and fully engaged in the moment and allows us to observe our thoughts and feelings without judgment. And so, this awareness really helps us to recognize emotional triggers before they lead to mindless eating. Another powerful tool is deep breathing. And when emotions are running high, It's so helpful to just take a few moments and focus on slow, deep breaths that can calm your nervous system down and reduce the stress. Remember, it's your brain is freaking out. And so if you can use other mechanisms to calm yourself down, then that's going to go a long way in preventing overeating. So that's a simple practice. There are so many. Maybe we'll do like a little deep breathing thing that we'll throw into the modules here, but it's just a simple practice that can prevent the urge to eat out of anxiety or frustration. But exercise is such an excellent way to manage your emotions because physical activity releases endorphins, and that's your body's natural mood lifter. It helps to burn off nervous energy, it helps to burn off calories. And so, whether it is a walk or yoga or a full workout, just moving your body can provide you with emotional relief that you might otherwise seek from food. And having that emotional awareness is so beneficial. It really is the key to preventing mindless eating. So by regularly checking in with yourself and identifying, what you're feeling, are you stressed? Are you bored? Are you lonely? Are you happy? Can really help you to better understand what your emotional triggers are. And this self awareness allows you to choose healthier ways to cope with those emotions rather than just automatically turning to food. And having a support system is crucial when you're making changes to your eating habits. Therapy groups, support groups, just a safe place to talk about your emotions and receive guidance. And having an accountability partner can really be invaluable, someone that can provide encouragement and help you to stay on track with your goals. And this is what I love so much about our school community. I think that this is where it truly shines because within the community, you find a wealth of support and tools designed to help you succeed. We share healthy snack options and food recipes, and we make eating well enjoyable and not stressful and fun. And we have fun challenges to encourage you and make it fun. Plus, you get to connect with a community of people that are on the same journey and they offer each other encouragement and tips and motivation. And just being part of a group like that, that understands your struggles and celebrates your victories and your success, makes the journey to healthy eating that much more manageable and rewarding. This is the end of module one, which was an introduction to emotional eating. And I hope that you'll check out module two, which will give you some strategies to prevent emotional eating.